How does new genetic information evolve? Segment 1. Point mutations. In our previous films, we learned that genetic information contained within a stretch of DNA or RNA called a gene, helps determine the size, shape, and even the behavior of a living creature. Humans have over 20,000 genes, which tell our cells how to build and maintain our bodies. The information needed to build a person is obviously different than the information needed to build a mushroom. Biologists, however, tell us that all living things on Earth, including people and mushrooms, evolved from an ancient common ancestor, a relatively simple creature with far less genetic information than the plants, animals, and fungi alive today. If this is true, how did all this new genetic information evolve? We don't yet know for sure how the very first genes came about, but through careful genetic studies of living things in the wild, in the laboratory, and even in our own backyards, we've discovered many ways in which new genetic information evolves today. In this film, we'll look at the simplest mechanism, point mutations. A point mutation is any change that only affects a single pair of nucleotides or letters in the genetic code. They often occur when cells are reproducing, they appear to be mostly random, and they're surprisingly common. Current studies suggest that in humans, every child born has roughly 70 unique point mutations. Most mutations are completely neutral, but if one happens to land in a sensitive spot of genetic code, it often has a negative effect on a creature's ability to survive and reproduce. Natural selection usually takes care of these negative mutations by simply removing them from the gene pool. On rare occasions, beneficial point mutations occur. While the changes they make aren't quite as extreme as what we're used to in the movies, incredible changes have been observed. Researchers in the lab of Dr. Richard Lenski have observed and documented hundreds of mutations in bacteria. One of these, for example, was a beneficial point mutation found in a strain of E. coli. An A from its code was simply replaced with a T. Those who carried the mutation were able to reproduce faster than normal in the lab. In less than 1 year, they outcompeted and caused the complete local annihilation of their non-mutant siblings. Back in 1976, 2 scientists reported a strange mutation in Salmonella that occurred in one of their labs. Their work was recently evaluated by Dr. Michael Behe, who classified their discovery as a rare gain-of-function mutation. The mutation gave these microbes the brand new ability to detect and then eat a rare sugar called D-arabinose. Microorganisms are interesting, but what about larger, more complex animals? Can simple mutations give them new features too? Most domestic dogs, and their wild relatives, gray wolves, have fairly short fur. Some dog breeds, however, have extremely long fur. By carefully studying the genetic code of over 700 dogs, and then comparing their DNA to that of wolves, scientists discovered a single point mutation on a gene called FGF5. This point mutation, which simply changed a G to a T, is largely responsible for the long fur found in dozens of dog breeds, including the Shih Tzu, the Collie, and the Pomeranian. But what about wild plants and animals? Can they undergo positive point mutations as well? Cane toads and their relatives produce a milky toxin in a gland behind their ears that kills almost any animal that tries to eat them. If you could zoom in to see the surface of a cell inside an animal's body, you would find tiny protein structures that act like pumps embedded in the cell's membrane or skin. These protein pumps move electrolytes in and out of the cell. Toad toxins work by attaching to and clogging these pumps, wreaking havoc all throughout a creature's body. Dr. Nicholas Casewell and his colleagues recently found that several different kinds of animals, lizards, snakes, and even hedgehogs, have all independently undergone small point mutations, which modify the shape and stickiness of their transporter proteins. As a result, toad toxins fail to attach, meaning that these mutants are now immune to the poison. So to sum things up, point mutations are an excellent source of new genetic information for a population. Dog populations of the past, for example, only had information for growing short fur. Thanks to a point mutation, they now have information to make pups with short fur or long fur. It's important to note, however, point mutations do not usually increase the total amount of information in the genetic code of an individual. Instead, they edit what's already there, meaning that for the individual, when new information is gained, old information is lost. In our next film, we'll look at a special type of mutation called a duplication event. These mutations dramatically increase the length of the genetic code and can even give rise to entirely new genes.